One of Minecraft's earliest additions was the bed, a simple red and white block that, as you all probably know, allows you to set your spawn point and sleep through the night. This was a great addition, right? Well, sort of. While a very useful addition for survival players, I've seen some bring up the argument that beds are one of the largest contributors for Minecraft losing that original fear you experienced in your first few playthroughs. This idea was originally brought to my attention by the Mr. Epic, and I wanted to take a deeper dive on how beds changed survival Minecraft forever. He brought up some great points in his video, and while a large portion of that fear disappearing was from the fact that you are no longer 5 years old, there is some truth to be told that beds may have contributed to Minecraft's decrease in difficulty. But how exactly did beds, a block that isn't a weapon, at least not intentionally, but we'll get to that later, nor a form of defense, take away from Minecraft's overall challenge? Well, it all started in beta 1.3, when the bed was originally introduced. See, before the introduction of beds, there was no way for the player to sleep, which in turn meant there was no way to skip through the night. Back in the early days of Minecraft, the night was daunting to players, as they knew that when that sun finally set, mobs would start to spawn all around them, and players would find themselves vulnerable if left out in the open. Players knew that when the night came, if they didn't have somewhere to hide or some form of shelter, they would likely face a sudden death from a horde of zombies and skeletons, or have a creeper sneak up on them. The night was scary. More importantly, the night was also an incentive for the player to build a base, and make it safe enough to keep mobs from getting in. The idea of the night arriving with nowhere to go was truly terrifying. Not to mention that in the earlier versions of Minecraft, there was no sprinting to run away from mobs, so if you were caught out in the night, you'd likely only be left with one option, being fighting. The earlier versions of Minecraft also had different textures. The night was much darker, making it harder to see what was around you, and even blocks like grass played a vital role, as the old grass texture blended in with the creeper, making them significantly harder to spot. There would be times where you would look right past one and not even notice till it was too late. Countless other new features also contributed to mobs becoming less feared, such as shields and totems of course, but these weren't added until much later, and they are a whole separate topic of their own. In these early stages of Minecraft, this night was truly something to be feared. Looking at version 1.3 when the bed was introduced, this fear slowly slipped away, as now all it took was 3 wooden planks and 3 pieces of wool and you're good. You can skip through the night and go straight to the next morning without even seeing a single mob. Having the option to skip the night took away from the scariest aspect of the early to mid stage of a Minecraft world, as mobs were now easily avoidable. The only place you really had to worry about mobs in the overworld were caves. Beds made the night less daunting because you could simply just skip through it. However, beds were a bit of a challenge to obtain when first introduced, as there were far fewer sheep spawning around the world than there are now. This isn't to say that you couldn't have a bed after the first few days though. As time has gone on and Minecraft has received more and more updates, beds have become easily obtainable, with there being a large increase in mob spawn rates and more notably an increase in the rate of villages spawning around your world. Getting the materials to make a bed or straight up just finding a bed itself is quite easy. Villages are largely to blame for this, as although they used to be quite rare, the Village and Pillage update made it so you can easily find a village and obtain a bed within 5 minutes of starting a new world. Villages used to be limited to just the plains and the deserts, while now they can be found almost anywhere. Beds have become incredibly easy to obtain, but you know what else is really easy? If you could do me a favor and smash the like on this video, it would help me out quite a bit, and if you are really enjoying this video, subscribe so you never miss out on another video just like this one. You did it? Great, thanks. Back to the video. So beds have become incredibly easy to obtain, and skipping the night along with it, but the other aspect of the bed decreasing the game's overall difficulty was the ability to set your spawn point. Some believe that the ability to set your spawn was a negative addition, as it was simply just far less risky to leave your base to go out and explore. Well, yes, this is the case. I do think being able to set your spawn was an overall good addition, and had it not been introduced, I believe many players would rarely or never go outside of the spawn area of their world. Setting your spawn point gives you the freedom to choose where you want to set up your base, as without it you'd either have to make your base at spawn or risk losing your entire base if you died, which inevitably happens to everyone here and there. Some think that the extra risk of making your base with the idea if you died you would spawn incredibly far away was a fun challenge. While it could be a fun challenge, I think a majority of the players, myself included, would find it more to be frustrating than fun. Another more odd aspect of the bed decreasing the game's overall difficulty that, while not the focus, I feel like I can't not mention, is the beds being weaponized. For a little background info, beds are incapable of being used in either the Nether or the End. bed, as it's never day or night there, rather it's just existing in its own space and time. If you attempt to use a bed in either dimension, it will explode, likely killing you in the process. This makes sense, right? As you can't skip the night in a place where night never occurs. Well, yeah, it makes perfect sense, but players found a different way to use this function and decided to turn the bed into one of Minecraft's deadliest weapons. Players now use beds to obliterate mobs, as the explosions dealt by beds can be absolutely massive, so much so that you'll see players bring an entire inventory worth of beds to kill the Ender Dragon. You can legitimately kill the final boss of Minecraft with ease using a bunch of beds, an item originally meant for sleeping. Now, this doesn't actually affect the night time in Minecraft, but I thought it was important to mention, as it's kind of wild that players were able to use beds in such a unique manner. Now, this isn't to say that beds are the sole reason Minecraft is now being considered easier than its previous versions. Beds have caused the night to become an interference in the player's experience rather than a challenge, but there are countless other features that alongside the bed that have slowly contributed to the game's night overall being easier to survive. These features mostly made it easier to approach mobs, and they can include things like sprinting, easily accessible healing through food, shields. I think you get the point. All of these features have helped towards making Minecraft's night less daunting for the player, and while I'm sure that my skill level is a large factor on why the night is easier, you can't ignore the effect these features had. I've seen the argument that Minecraft has become easier as a whole, and while I have an entire separate video on that, it's important to remember that for kids, the target audience of the game, the difficulty is likely still there. I mean, sure, they can skip the night, but they have to deal with factors we never did, like the warden, increased mob spawns in caves, the large amounts of things trying to kill you in the nether, and so on. Minecraft has added a ton of new, difficult, and challenging content for the player, but it's important to understand that after playing for a certain period of time, you're gonna have quite an easy time playing the game, as you already know how it all works. Though, this doesn't negate the fact that beds did take a lot of fear from Minecraft's nighttime. With that tidbit done, I do think there would have been a better way for beds to be introduced, and that would have been by simply making beds a way to set your spawn point and completely removing the function of skipping the night. This would still allow for beds to be useful and would remove the ability to skip through the night completely. However, this will 100% never happen, as the beds have been established with the function of sleeping through the night for an entire decade, so it's far too late to change it, and that's completely okay. Minecraft has found new ways to introduce challenges through enemies in varying structures. It may not be as apparent and as common as the idea of hiding away during the night, but challenge still does exist for players who are in search of it. The introduction of beds is something that affected Minecraft greatly, even if not noticed at first. Whether the effect was positive or negative is up for you to decide. Beds by no means ruined Minecraft, but they undoubtedly made the game easier and took away some of that fear only found in the earliest versions of the game. But I'm curious, what do you think about beds in Minecraft? Were they overall a good or bad addition? I'd love to continue this conversation, so leave any thoughts you have down in the comments below. I'd also like to quickly ask you for a favor and ask that if you did enjoy the video whatsoever, hitting that like button is greatly appreciated, and if you really enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe so you never miss out on another video just like this one. That's it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.